So welcome back to the IPA, hashtag She's IPA and Policing TV collaboration on highlighting women in policing and police women in International Police Association. This is episode 2, and today we are speaking with Samantha Alexander, who is one of the founders of the Women of Color in Policing. So Samantha, please share with me the background to Women of Color in Policing and how can this organization or movement more or less contribute to empower women in policing?
Well, I'm the assistant lead in Women of Colour in Policing, and it's called WOCIP, and just the abbreviation. And it was born out of the loss of Sandra's mother. So Sergeant Sandra Smith is the founder of WOCIP, and in 2020, in the beginning of COVID, and when it was really, in a distressing state, and no one really understood, Sandra's mother sadly passed away. And it was a real difficult time for her. And she was reaching out to people to see if their experiences, or was there support for people of colour or women of colour. Bearing in mind that we were being told in Britain that 1 in 4 black people or Asian or people from diverse communities ethnically were 1 in 4 times more likely to die if they,
Hmm.
got COVID. So it was
Yeah.
a real heightened time of awareness and fear. And sadly, Sandra's mum passed away. And WOSIP was born out of that tragedy, really, out of that pain. And I met up with Sandra at a conference and we were talking. We didn't know we knew each other, actually. I'd been emailing Sandra about a number of different things because she was the lead of the Hertfordshire Black Police Association. So, and I just kept sending her different emails about, things that I think should have been done. And we sort of had this tag sort of team going on, but we met in person. And quickly the work just, began. We took on the mantle. There was a call to action to other women about their experiences, what they would like to be heard, their voices muted, the pain that they were in, some women who didn't feel that they were being seen. And so quickly we formed like 10, it spilled over into about 15 in the end, but 10
Mm.
solid areas that we were working on. And those areas, work came from imposter syndrome to if you see me, why don't you hear me? The barriers, the physical barriers, the intersectionalities, somebody who might in the black community or, in the ethnic minority communities who might be gay, who's that
Mm.
fear around sharing their sexuality. So we quickly started to look at these areas and we realised that from 2 years in or 6 months in to 30 years, the story was the same. And then we were being reached out to from other forces and the story was the same. And then other organisations and the story was the same. And WOSIP really began to be embedded. And one of the really niche parts about WOSIP is that we work collaboratively because policing doesn't stand alone. Policing works with many agencies,
Mm.
um, as well as dependent on itself to get the job done. And so we started looking at a different way. And then we started looking about how do we continue this journey? How do we continue the funnel in of women of colour into policing so that we can have that sustainable change? And we started to work with the young WOSIP influencers. But our core work is about attraction. From the minute we are attracting people into policing, women of colour, what's the provision for them? And how can we help women grow? How do we support women on their journey? What
Mm.
does promotion look like to a woman of colour who's been in the organisation for so long that she's become disillusioned? How do we support people when they're going through some difficult times? And what do the women bring to it too? Because this is not always on the organisation. We are very much about women uprising in terms of the talent that they have, seeing themselves as worthy to be here. And this year's strapline for us, so the first year was the call to action. The second year was we go hard or we go home. This year it is you don't know what you don't know. Her voice matters. And it's really important that women know their voice matters. We have become elected mute because of fear. And so WOSIP is about demonstrating, the power of your voice. and your voice can be powerful even in silence.
Yes. So when you speak about all this different, it's not campaigns, but if you think about all this information, this training that you deliver, so what can women of color in policing contribute with when it comes to diversity, equality, and inclusion in the police?
Well, we have devised a number of training or webinars. We've put together listening circles, and the motive of listening circles are learning to listen, listening to hear. And the listening circle is about having these forums where women can bring these issues to the forefront. It's not about people trying to solutionize them. It's about actually hearing the impact of what women are going through, and then the organisation can take those learning, and the recommendations will be given and put into place. We also do alternative conversations around positive action, working with the positive action teams. We've produced some workshops where we are engaging the learning of what it is that women are experiencing, women of colour, and the disproportionality, the gender parity. You know, we tackle a lot of issues. We support people who are experiencing maybe a fairness at work or might want to bring something to the organisation. And we also collaborate with an organisation called Becoming International. And we've got the Becoming Career Ready programme, where we've seen 56 women who have graduated from the programme. And Skills for Justice is another collaborator who's seen our work. In 2022, we were awarded the Diversity Group of the Year around innovation by Skills
Wow.
for Justice, and they have continued to walk alongside us. And now they solidify our program, where when the women graduate, they receive a certificate from Skills for Justice, demonstrating that they've actively been involved in the program, they're committed to the program, and then they can use that as a CPD, you know, further personal career development. We are instrumental within the organisation. We are about attraction must be right. So even our subliminal messaging, are we using black women in our imagery that denotes that we are black women, that denotes that we are Asian women or women of colour? Our imagery is important, and that will help us dispel misogyny, you know, where old type images of black women were not very favourable. What that looks like for women in colour, if you like, and how we can attract people into the organisation. And then we look at our training in terms of we work alongside different training in the organisation, even in CQ, you know, cultural intelligence, making people aware of the disadvantages that women of colour face, language barriers, accent bias, you know, all of those things that, you know, take place. And we are instrumental in terms of inclusion. And then we work with the women to look at what's your contribution in the organisation? How do you make a change? What can you leave behind for the next woman coming up? And how do you walk alongside? All of it is to make a better environment. When we work with our communities, it's authentic. So we're working with other people. We have worked with the Pride of Britain winner, Michelle Donnelly, for instance, 2022 Pride of Britain woman. She was a community hero, and her journey with policing hadn't been good. And we engaged with her. We wanted to understand, how can we make a difference? But it won't just benefit her, it will benefit us in the way in which we work as community officers and police officers. Um, she is now, you know, there's a 360-degree turn. She's produced a podcast with policing, in terms of how she would walk alongside a police officer in her community, where that community don't really see officers in a positive light. She's prepared to go into schools. And I think all of that brings learning into the force. It demonstrates to us we can be authentic, we can be true. We have to tackle some difficult things within policing. You know, even as women, we know that we've been disadvantaged, but we can't stay in that position. So, our remit in terms of equality, inclusion, diversity, there's a richness in diversity. And the richness in diversity is understanding how we all can be seen and heard. And that's where our delivery is. And we sit, you know, at different equality boards. and WOCIP is demonstrative in helping the organisation, because the organisation wants to invest in us, and therefore with that investment we want to make sure that we have got a proper representation of women of colour, or where English is not their mother tongue, in the organisation.
Well, women in color, when you think about representation in any kind of rank or any kind of profession, is crucial. But to make it aware to everyone, not only women of color, that there is possibilities, then I would think that leadership in the police, as we are representing the police, must be one of your challenges to bring in women when it comes to women of color. So how does this movement support women that would like to do something else in policing and maybe also get promoted?
Yes, well, we work really closely with women. One of the remits of the Becoming Programme is also helping women who are talented. These are women who are very talented, very skilled, but might have been put off, for instance, going for promotion, have talked themselves down from engaging, after perhaps some years of not seeing that direct change. It's different in policing in terms of you going, for your sergeants and going back. I speak also to staff. I'm a staff member of staff, and looking at promotion in that way. And we encourage women very, very strongly to look at why they're not going for those. And as I said, those barriers do present themselves. But one of the work that we do, and we have seen 11 women promoted in the last year and a half. After our work with them, we've seen 9 women reverse their decision to leave the organisation. We don't have a high representation of women of colour in the organisation, particularly black women. It's the lowest percentage. So it's crucial that we work through these issues so that we can retain these women, and we have gone on to support and do that. It's also important that at the top of the chain, and I always give this example about the cotton field. For a long time we were in the cotton field, and now we've been allowed to come up to the manor house, and we've come from the cotton field to the manor house, and up into the manor house we've been allowed to come to the top table. That's the decision making table. But at the decision making table we haven't been given the correct cutlery, or even asked if we use cutlery, depending on our culture of what our use is. Do I have a need of with dexterity, for instance? And that's why women of colour is imperative, is important in the organisation. We have to be able to learn from our past. We have to move into a position where we can be leaders and decision makers, but we also have to be allowed to be those decision makers and make those decisions and have a voice. And this is the work that we've been doing. And actually, we don't have representation. I think our top black woman chief officer is Ma'am Rebecca Tippin, Detective Chief Superintendent Rebecca Tippin. In this day and age, we should see a good mix of diversity at those positions. We're not seeing that. So we are pushing. We're also pushing for the women who want to remain where they are, but they are being seen for the work that they're doing,
Yeah.
whether it's a lateral move. But you're quite right. In leadership, we are falling down. We have, Kimberly Campbell Lamb is the staff equivalent on her journey to becoming an ACO. That's an assistant chief officer. But I shouldn't be able to just call out 1 or 2 women. And that's herein lies a problem. We should have a plethora because of our diverse community. And that's the work that WOCIP is doing. Yes, it's about addressing those issues, but it's also about why don't we have this, and asking those difficult questions, and then working towards with the organisation, whether it's on inclusion panels, interview panels, awareness days, or recruitment fairs, working to improve that. So our communities can see, actually, we do have women of colour, and that's across the forces. We speak to lots of forces, and the issue is very much the same.
I recognize this, Samantha, because by now, 15 years back in time, I met the Black Association of Police officers in UK, and it was all male persons that I met, and they talked exactly what you do today. 15 years later that women hasn't been seen and identified the same way. And I think it is absolutely super important for you and everyone within your movement, and also for the rest of us, to be there and also open the doors for the possibilities, because they should be there for everyone, whoever you are, what gender you got, or what color you got. It's your skills, your knowledge that you bring to the table, and also, as I said earlier, the mirror of the population of your country. It need to be there. And if you got people with the same knowledge as everyone else, so why shouldn't they be? So thank you for sharing this with us today. It's really, I couldn't say an eye opener, but it's facts and information that we all should learn from. And I'm sure that many women and men would like to join both the police and the hashtag She's IPA, but some of them would like to join your women of color in policing. So the support of women of color in policing is important, as still any support of women in policing. So stay on. There will be episode number 3 where we speak with Samantha Alexander. Thank you.